Feeling friends is this concept that I came up with laying in bed one night. I have all these close friends who have these wonderful stories that can help change the world, life experiences that can help other people believe in themselves, hold tight to their dreams and make their dreams reality. On Feeling Friends, we talk about God, we talk about love, relationships. I have celebrity friends, I have non-celebrity friends. I have church members, family members. But when you watch and listen to Feeling Friends, you will learn and you will laugh. It's a community of friends helping to build each other up. So tune in to Feeling Friends every Sunday on WHCR 90.3 FM, or you can catch me on YouTube at Feeling Friends Radio. All right, I'll see you there. WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. What's up, everybody? It's me, Phil, and I'm back with the YouTube interviews that are going live on air every Sunday from 2 to 4, live on air. We've got a new one of my homeboys is now on the station. Tavis Smiley comes right after me. So you're listening to the Power Network right here in Harlem. Listen, I've got a good friend, and I know I always say I got a good friend, but this is my homegirl, the real deal, Attorney Neal. She is live on air. She is Atlanta's #1 attorney. And I'm not just saying that, she really is. So you better not mess with me because I'm going to call her. Without further ado, I've got my friend Johnquel Neal live on air today. Hey, Johnquel, how are you?
Hey, everybody. I'm doing so good. And thank you, Phil, so much for having me. This means so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on. You know, you have been a support of me for a long time. We've been a support of each other. We've been knowing each other since we were 18 years old. Yeah. And now we're 21. And so what a blessing.
Listen, I'm 21, just like
all right. Listen, but I remember you in class, and we were working in class, and you said, I want to be an attorney. I said, I'm thinking about being an attorney too. But you actually went through, you made it happen. So tell the people who you are and what you do for a living.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm Johnquel Neal. I go by Attorney Real Deal Neal. I am an attorney in Atlanta. I've been practicing 14 years.
Wow.
So I guess that wouldn't make me 21 anymore, right? However, my firm, the Johnquel Neal firm, we are a trial law firm. Our specialty areas are personal injury with a concentration in trucking litigation. So anyone involved in car accidents, anyone severely injured by a truck, an 18-wheeler. We also represent victims of crimes. So we sue corporations on behalf of individuals who are victims of crime. And I also am a criminal defense attorney. And so my main passion is to represent those that are disadvantaged by the criminal justice system and that are injured. And it's on the Johnquel Neal firm. We are always seeking justice.
We're always seeking justice, and we appreciate you. I want to go back before we jump into this criminal justice and the things you've done in Atlanta. I want to go back to your family life because you're from upstate New York.
I am.
Syracuse, right?
Yes, that's right.
Syracuse. Tell us what that family structure was like, because we see you post your family, your mom and dad. They're two super strong Black African Americans who are making a difference. And your mom's a pastor, right?
She is.
Oh, tell us about that family structure and how it got you to where you are today.
You know what? That's such a great question, Phil. My family is absolutely instrumental in who I am today. If it wasn't for them, I'd be a totally different person. My parents, they're still married. They've been married for 39 years. Oh. And my dad is a retired school teacher. But in his retired capacity, he is a consultant for the school district. And my mother is an ordained reverend. Before an ordained reverend, she was a police detective in Syracuse, New York, and she retired after 25 years.
Oh, wow.
My parents are very active in the community. And, you know, the household that I grew up in was one that was very strict, very conservative, and very focused on traditional family values, Christianity, and being a goal setter and a winner. My mother, who is an ordained reverend now, and actually that's her second career. Her first career was actually in fashion, and we'll talk more about that you should evolve as a person, because my mother's first career was in fashion, and then she was
you're a fashionista. You don't catch you in the same outfit. You're gonna be in something. Marcus card is charged up.
Listen. That's Grace Kelly Neal, okay? She went to FIT and
Okay.
she was a buyer in Manhattan for 8
Oh,
years.
really? Okay.
So yeah, she was in the fashion industry and she was a model as well. So they've done a lot of different things. But my mother was always a woman of God. And I was in church 3 times a week at least. I was there on Sunday. I was sung in the choir. I was the Sunday school secretary. I was the
Usher board.
the usher board, the junior usher board. Listen,
Right.
we
You
were in
both.
church, okay?
Right, exactly.
And so that is the foundation of who I am. And my parents are very strict. My dad was an athlete. He's a Hall of Famer with the NCAA as well as up in Central New York. And so I always played sports, and sports was also instrumental in my upbringing. But I come from a very close, traditional Christian family with strong Christian values, and they just believe in excellence.
Let's talk about that Christian faith. You know, me and you both talk about that a lot. What does your faith mean to you, and how do you use that in your role, especially being a litigator and fighting for justice for the people?
You know, honestly, it is the foundation and the rock of my life, right? You know, growing up, you know, I went to church so much. And so when we got to college, you know, I was like, well, I don't have to go to church as often anymore. You know what I mean? So I took a little break. Okay.
You didn't go to chapel like everybody else.
Okay, I did go to chapel, so let me retract my statement. Okay, I
yeah.
just went 3 times a week.
I think a lot of us took a little break. It was going to chapel. And
I did a little break, a little skirt.
Right.
But it is the foundation. Whenever I know about myself, whenever I feel like I'm at my lowest point, the only place I have to go to is to the Lord, right? And to my knees and pray. And especially when I'm a former homicide prosecutor with the Fulton County District Attorney's Office, who is in the news a lot lately for prosecuting Trump. But that was a very, very difficult job. It's the most difficult thing outside of some personal things I've been through. The most difficult thing I've ever had to do was to be a prosecutor. And I had to always stay in prayer. Prayer is my anchor, and it's been instrumental in my mental health as well.
It's important for Black people to have Black prosecutors. Talk about that importance, because and I don't want to jump around, but since we're talking about it, what does it mean to have a Black prosecutor in the courtroom?
Well, you know, it's so important because the majority of those incarcerated are African Americans, right? And so, you know, Vice President Kamala Harris catches a lot of slack about her being tough on crime, with her being a prosecutor. However, you need people that look like you, because most of the defendants, and specifically in Atlanta, where I'm at, mostly all the defendants are Black. And what does that mean? That means that most of the victims are Black, right? And so I think it's important to understand the cultural differences, the educational differences, being able to relate and have compassion for my victims, and also being fair, you know. And as a criminal defense attorney, people always ask me, how could I become a defense attorney? You know, welcome to the dark side, or do I miss it? And the fact of the matter is that for me, my biggest thing as a prosecutor was to uphold justice and to seek justice. And if charges needed to be dismissed, I dismissed them. If they needed to be reduced, I reduced them. If they needed to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, that's what I did. However, as a defense attorney on this side now, we're important to keep the government accountable, to make sure that people are not railroaded. Okay. And that's important as well. But it is absolutely important to have people that look like you, making the decisions on whether you spend the rest of your life in prison.
Over stealing a bag of bread, but I know you did homicide, but it could be small things like jumping fair. You know, they prosecute us to the fullest extent versus people who are selling or doing whatever who get off. So there is no equity when it comes to the justice system, but you were fighting for equity and equality, right? In the justice system.
You're absolutely right. And also, so I did prosecute homicides, but I started off in non-complex. So I went through all the units. So I prosecuted the simplest.
What does non-complex mean? Sorry.
So non-complex felony charges would be like one little hit of like crack cocaine, or maybe like a minor level felony theft charge, burglaries, you know, entering automobiles, you know, stuff like that. That's not complex. And then I went on to drug trafficking, armed robbery, SVU, all of that. But see, the things, what happens is that if you're a repeat offender, The prosecutor, and this is why it's important to have prosecutors that look like you. You have a lot of discretion as a prosecutor, right? Now, there are certain statutes where there are mandatory minimums, but however, in those smaller cases that you refer to, if you have in Georgia, if you have 2 prior felony convictions, depending on what that pending charge is, the prosecutor has the ability to recidivize you, meaning come after you for the fullest extent of the law, as we would call the 3 strikes and you're out, right?
Which is right, you're right.
3 strikes and you're out. And so as a prosecutor, you have a lot of discretion. You can also reduce charges, or you don't have to charge at the highest level. Your sentence recommendations, you have a lot of range as it relates to that. So that is why it is important to have diversity in prosecutorial offices.
Let's talk about recidivism. And I know we're talking around. I want to get back to let's talk about recidivism and reoffense, for those that don't reoffense, and stopping that. How do we get to the point to where we say, okay, we need to put something in place to help these people? Because a lot of these kids just get caught up in the system or get caught up in the lifestyle. We live in Harlem. I live in Harlem. And that's all they know is crime. So how do we stop it at a young age? Do you know?
Well, number one of the leading issues as it relates to crime is a lack of education. So if you start young with children and making sure that they have graduated with their education, that's foremost. It's definitely, education is directly correlated with crime. Socioeconomic status also for certain types of crimes, right? Sometimes, not all the time, but there are correlations with that. But it really is investing in our children, giving back, making sure that we pour into them, that they're graduating from school, that there's in programs that you and I were in, like Inroads or Upward Bound, ensuring that kids stay on the right path. Now, as it relates to if they already are starting to get in trouble, you know, in Georgia, they do have alternative sentencing, right? So if it's like a first offense, you can have a diversion program option where if you complete these programs, you can get them dismissed. Part of that also is hiring a good lawyer, right? As a defense attorney, you know, my job is, you know, to help my client to get the best possible outcome that I can, whether that is a dismissal, whether that is some kind of alternative sentencing. And so, you know, a lot of times I'll assist my clients with getting involved in community organizations, making sure that they are starting to become productive members of society, even with pending charges, because judges and prosecutors, they look at that when they're weighing what to determine what is the proper sentencing.
Johnquel, I want to talk about it. So you started off as a court-appointed attorney. Is that how you started?
Yes, I did.
People don't know. And you know, most people think court-appointed attorneys are the people who are like bottom of the barrel, but they're not, right? And we have really good friends here in New York who started off court-appointed attorneys. But people say, if I get a court-appointed attorney, a lot of Black people don't have the money to buy that Johnny Cochran.
That's right.
They get stuck with the guy with the big suit who doesn't care with the horse, you know. So how do we filter out, for those that may be watching and have someone that's going through something or listening right now in Harlem? How do you find the right public defender for your case or for your children or somebody that's going through a tough time right now?
Well, one of the things that the Constitution is, you have a constitutional right to an attorney if you're charged with criminal offenses. But if it's a public defender, there's no obligation that you get to choose who that lawyer is, right? But you have charged with a crime, you have a constitutional right to an attorney. So if you cannot afford one, which is interesting, right? Because you have to fall between the threshold to even qualify for a public defender versus being able to hire one. So you have this subsect of people that may not be able to hire a certain level attorney, but they don't qualify for the public defender's office. And so that becomes very challenging, okay? That's another kind of gray area that's challenging for folks out there. But what I will say is there's a difference between being court appointed and being a public defender. So for instance, since I have my own firm, I have the option, and I have colleagues of mine that run their own law firms, and they still are court-appointed attorneys. They may not take a lot of cases, but they take a certain amount. Some use that way of giving back to the community. Right? And some use that way as that's just a part of their practice. And then some are fresh out of law school as well. But what I will say about court-appointed attorneys is that they're not going to put a brand new lawyer on the most serious charges case, right? So they do have proper channels in relation to that. But going back to what your question is about a public defender, public defenders, some of the best lawyers that I have went up against are public defenders. And let me tell you why public defenders are helpful. Number one, a public defender is assigned to those same judges in courtrooms every single day. So while they may have hundreds of cases, they know the prosecutor extremely well. They know the judge extremely well. If they have a good reputation in there, they're well respected. They know they can look at your case and tell you based upon the facts and walking into that file, what the prosecutor is likely going to recommend and what the judge will likely do with that case. Okay. So a private attorney, of course, is going to have the maximum amount of resources to defend you available to them in a case, right? You see what I'm saying? They can hire the best experts, the best defense. However, that doesn't mean that a public defender will not do a good job, but it doesn't mean that they will do a great job either. Hopefully I'm able to shed some light on that, but there are some really, really good public defenders and there are a lot of value in them. And frankly, everyone is not entitled to them. You have to qualify.
Thank you for explaining that. Because it's always like, you don't want a public defender, you going down. They gonna throw the book at you. But it's not like that. Yeah, but actually 2 of my good friends here in New York, who they were public defenders and did very well. Then they moved up to the federal side, and like you moved on up. So that's good to know. Working in homicide, I'm sure that really took a toll on you, right?
You know what? It actually, homicide was my unit I probably enjoyed the most while I was at the prosecutor's office.
Why is that?
Well, because my brother was murdered.
Right.
And so, being able to help victims get justice was something that was very, very important to me.
Let's talk about that. Yeah. Was he murdered before you got into the homicide unit or after?
Before.
Before.
He was murdered right before I went to the SVU, the Special Victims Unit.
Okay.
I was still in violent crime. So I was prosecuting shooting cases or those kinds of cases, but not to the level of what we call the 7 deadly sins, homicide. What I will say is that, and that's something I'm able to do at my firm now, at the Johnquel Neal firm. If someone is killed on a premises, I'm still able to assist victims, right, and sue, right? So I'm able to assist them to recover money in that circumstance. Versus,
so it's more of a civil thing with your firm now, right?
Right, that's right.
And that's important because a lot of these people, a lot of these companies, they don't care. They don't care about you, right. And they will run you over. They will and try to lowball you.
That's correct.
I want to go back to, and then we'll jump into the firm, but I want to go back to your brother and how it affected your family, because he was a good young man. I didn't know him, but he had children. They were very young at the time, right?
He did.
You and him and your relationship with him and how your family's doing now.
Yeah. So, my brother, out of my parents' children, he is the youngest.
Okay. Out of how many kids?
So it's a total of 4 of us.
Okay.
And so my brother, who's now deceased, is the youngest. And then 2 years, my sister they're 2 years apart. And then I'm 2 years older than her. So he and I are 4 years apart. We're very, very close. We were very, very close. And frankly, that was the most horrific thing that had ever happened to me in my life. And it really affected my mental health in a way that I had never even imagined. I was extraordinarily sad for years. I think it took me even a couple years to smile, to even really start smiling again. And for the first year or so, I was really a shell of myself. I was still able to excel at work. I was trying cases successfully and doing well at work, but I could absolutely do nothing else. I literally would come home and cry every day. So with my family, it was something in the way he was murdered. He was shot in the head and his case is still unsolved. And it was something that was extraordinarily traumatic for me, for my family. And he did have 2 small children. He has twin daughters. They were 5 at the time.
They're beautiful. Yeah.
They're now 13.
Oh, 13, yeah.
Yeah, so they're growing up to be young ladies now. And so, that was something that, everyone has their own opinion of themselves, right? And so I always considered myself to be a fairly strong person and have gone through things in life, but I can definitely say that was something that was extraordinary and something that I wasn't prepared for, and I don't think anybody could be prepared.
Yeah, that's not anything you could be prepared for.
Yeah.
You have any loved one or you're close, but I don't think you could be. But I think that, and I noticed when it happened to you, you could see like your friends would know. What helped you get through it though? I know your faith did, but what other things did you do to help you get through the loss of your loved one?
Definitely prayer was, number one, and going to church. But definitely my family and friends, checking on me, coming by. I definitely became very reclusive. So I really didn't go out much. I really didn't want to socialize outside of going to work and getting that done. That kind of was it. But, I think one of the biggest things is with grief is allowing yourself to go through it and to have a level of acceptance of what's happening to you, and also being kind to yourself. Right. That is what I found to be helpful. And I also started doing therapy as well.
How did it help you?
It did. I didn't do therapy initially, right? I tried a couple sessions right away. I didn't particularly like those therapists. And so what I will say to anyone out there, to don't give up. If you tried therapy once, you didn't really like that therapist, you tried it twice. I've had to go through several therapists until I found my right one. And so, that's something that can be a tremendous move shaker as it relates to your life.
Absolutely. Therapy is important. I want to talk about, and I don't want to, and my condolences to you. I mean, you're doing an amazing job, and I see your nieces online, and your parents look like, I mean, I wouldn't want to imagine what they're going through, but they look like they have gotten better, and they still help people. And I think that's important, is that you keep pushing forward, and you know that God has a plan, and you have used your life to help other people. And so I know that when you're working with those families, that you can speak to it, because you fought you went through that, what you're fighting for, the justice for their family members who've been killed. So God bless you on that.
Oh, thank you, Phil. Thank you so much for saying that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, I want to jump to you being a Black woman who's an amazing person in white spaces, and how you navigate. Because I'm sure it's a young Black woman who's watching this and trying to figure out, I don't want to code switch. I don't know what to do. What would you speak to a young Black person, Black woman, who will be in the positions that you're going to be in one day, and how do you motivate them? Like, what would you tell them?
Well, number one, I would say always, whenever you go into your respective fields or jobs, have your goals in line for that job. Why are you at that job, right? If you're just starting there, it's likely not your dream job. Some people may start off with their dream job, okay? That was not the case for me. So, if you are there for a couple of years or a year or whatever, have your trajectory mapped out and know what you're there for, and fulfill that purpose, and keep your eye on that purpose.
Should you write it down? I think you said that before. We spoke together last week at our university. Yeah. You told the people, you said write everything. Did you say write everything down?
I said write it down and make it plain.
Make it plain.
Make it plain. And hang that stuff up so that you're walking by it.
That's so funny you say that. My mom always say, when I was in LA, I had a raggedy apartment. They came to my apartment. They was like, "Oh God, you're living here." But I knew I was gonna move up sooner or later.
It's
but
really
right, it is. On my wall, I had a sheet of paper about what I wanted to do and what I want and how I wanted to go. So that's very important that you see that every day.
You see it every day. And you want to know what else I would say about that code switching? I would say always operate in a spirit of diplomacy, but I say always be your authentic self. Okay, you're going to come up with challenges at work. Some of them may be due to your race, and some of them are not. Some of them may be due to your gender. There's just so many things, or just to people's preconceived notions just about you, because people make assumptions, and so you do not dim your light. Always operate in diplomacy, though. But I'm an advocate of being yourself. And
what does diplomacy mean? What does that mean for people? Explain that, diplomacy.
So diplomacy means, what people would say is saying things in a politically correct way. Maybe that's a way to say it. But what I mean by that is that you can always stay true to yourself, but it's how and the way you articulate it is kind of going to determine how far up you go.
And it's not what you say, but it's how you say it.
It's how you say it.
How you say it.
How you say it.
And I think, when people, they always tell me the our cohorts. They always say, Phil, you're always yourself. Like, what is that? Why do they act? You know, you have coworkers who act fake, but I'm always myself. I'm always my authentic self, and you are too. And that makes a difference. You just got to be real. You don't have, there's a difference between being on the streets in Harlem and then being in a boardroom at the corporation on the level, you know, so we just have to be able to maneuver through those things in our lives.
Also, lastly, and what we also mean about being true to yourself is you don't have to go to work and be friends with these people and try to establish these personal relationships. Keep it professional and keep your personal life and your personal feelings about things to yourself, right? But you always want to go in, and for whatever position you ultimately want at that business, you dress like that. Remember we learned that in school?
Every day. Yep, we did. We dressed up so much. When I got grown, I was like, I'm tired of wearing suits. We have to wear them anyway. But that was my whole life. I've been wearing suits since I was 3 years old. So that was my entire trajectory. But you dress for what you want.
That's right.
And, you know, we tell the young people now, Johnquel and I just spoke at our university, Clark Atlanta, you know, you have to dress your part. You can't walk around with these pajamas on and smelling like weed and so on. So you have to be professional. But I think that is this new generation is not our generation. So
that's right.
We're changing. So we're, you know, but we still need that professionalism when it comes to that. What's the importance of starting off at an HBCU?
Listen, Clark Atlanta University, my mother even will admit to you that she saw such a major shift in who I was. And when you talk about my parents, why they were so instrumental, my mom always told me that I needed to be a lawyer. She said, because I always had so much mouth. That's how she said it. Right? So it planted that seed since I was a small child all the way up through. And so that just kind of stuck with me all the way. But what I will say is that, you know, each of us, I believe that each of us have our own gifts that we are blessed with, right? You are naturally blessed with gifts. You can develop skills and hone skills and become great at things, but you have your natural gifts and who you are inside, right? And it takes the right environments, and this is the same for children, to nurture that, right? And so Clark Atlanta University was superior, at least for me, in terms of nurturing who I was, because they started off from day one about the internships that you needed to do in order to be successful, the keys to being successful. They opened the doors with different organizations that were on campus, like Inroads, to help push you forward. You know, the professors were amazing, very vested. And then frankly, you just had to operate in a spirit of excellence. You know, if you were a business major, as you alluded to, you had to dress up in a suit. And even though we were not business major, well, I was not a business major, I was mass media arts. Certain things at the school, convocation, whatever, you had to wear certain attire. Freshman seminar, you had to wear certain. They made sure that when you went out in the real world, that you presented a certain way.
And when we went to the real world, we could compete. There was no question about who you were. When we walked in the room, they knew who we were. We spoke well, we dressed well, and we were ready for the job. So I think that's how we need to start training our young people, especially in this new time of social media. These people on social media, that's not the real world. So we need to really hone into that. Let's jump into your new firm, what you're doing, and how you can help people with this Johnquel, the real deal.
Yes, thank you so much. At my firm, I am a family-owned business. My mom is my receptionist. My cousin is my photographer, videographer. You know, so and I have other employees as well that are family members that come and help out at the firm. And so we are a family-oriented law firm. We treat our clients like family. And so at my firm, at the Johnquel Neal firm, you know, as I said it before, we represent you in criminal defense matters. And we really help our clients to become better, productive members in society. And I'm not saying that they weren't before they met me, but we help enhance them in that way.
Absolutely.
And, you know, in terms of personal injury, that gives me the opportunity to go after money for my clients, right? If my clients are injured or my clients are victims of crimes, and they deserve to be compensated. And so, we attack that.
And there it is. You are not playing. Listen, Johnquel does not play. So if you want to call Johnquel, call her, tell them how to get in contact with you.
Sure. So the law firm's phone number is 888-884-NEAL, and that's NEAL, 6325. You can also visit my website at johnquelneallaw.com. That's JOHNQUELNEALLAW.com. You can also follow me on Instagram, Attorney Real Deal Neal. The law firm is on Instagram, the Johnquel Neal Firm. And so we're so excited to hear from you. I'm also from New York, as we talked about. And so there are certain types of cases I may be able to assist you with, even way out in New York. So give us a call.
Give her a call. We're going to put that information at the bottom of the screen. We're also going to play it at the end of the show. Listen, you have been a great guest today. Thank you so much. We need to call you for injuries, right? Trucking industry. Tell us again so we'll know.
Car accidents, trucking injuries, premises liability, victims of crimes. Victims of crime. So if you have been a victim of a crime, you should give me a call to see what options, civil options you have to see if we can pursue a recovery on your behalf. And of course, criminal defense. If you run into the criminal justice system, call me.
Call Johnquel. If I ever need her, hopefully for nothing bad, no criminal anything, but for my contracts, I'm calling Johnquel. I want you to leave the audience with a piece of nugget, the final thoughts, okay? So I'm going to hop off screen. I want you to tell the audience something that has been on your heart that you can tell them, please.
Okay. Right. Well, thank you all so much for having me today. But one of the things that I would say that is so important in your life is that whatever your religious beliefs are, that you stay firm and grounded in those beliefs, and that they stay the core and center of your life, because there are going to be difficult things that come at you. And the one thing that needs to stay consistent is your spirituality. In addition, always have goals, and write those goals down, pursue those goals, and be relentless towards those goals. Mm-hmm. However, if those goals if they don't come along as quickly as you would like, take a detour, right? Also, keep your family at a real high level. But no matter what, always keep God first and always strive for excellence. And you can't be stopped.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. The Real Deal, Attorney Neal. Have your commercials come out yet?
Listen, not yet, but listen, they'll be coming soon. They will be coming soon.
We appreciate you. We thank you. We love you. You have been an amazing friend, and I'm gonna keep praying for you. And just hold tight for me in the green room, okay?
Okay. Thank you. Thanks.
We want to thank our guest, Johnquel Neal, for coming live on air. Go check her out, Real Deal, Attorney Neal. Remember what she said, to put God first. We got to seek ye first the kingdom of God, his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. You're watching Phil and Friends. I'll see you live on air in the station from 2 to 4 every Sunday. All right, y'all. See you later. Peace.